A hotel guest observed more than she bargained for while she determined an unnerving handwritten "observe" in a drawer. Idea 2 had been left there with the aid of a previous guest. In December 2014, Amy Jones was staying in an Edinburgh inn while she found the creepy word that said, "Don't open the locked door. Don't trust its whispers. Leave, just leave." Instead of being freaked out, Jones took a picture of the "Be Aware" and uploaded it to Twitter. She then proceeded to fall asleep with the door in question dealing with her from the other quit of the room. The subsequent morning, she permit her Twitter followers realize that she turned into still alive and that she hadn't heard any whispers coming from the door. In November 2019, an unnamed source pronounced the killing of a sheep inside the New Forest in Hampshire. The sheep corpse had pentagrams, an inverted move and the variety 666 painted on it. It were stabbed to death. Furthermore, a heifer and 2 calves were located with stab wounds in Bramshaw and Linwood. When police investigated the incident, they found that an inverted goat and 666 had also been painted at the door of St. Peter's Church in Bramshaw. The New Forest has a historical connection to witchcraft, however the locals had in no way skilled anything occult-like before the sheep incident. Residents are said to be very disturbed by what has came about and wish that police will deliver the perpetrators of the satanic graffiti crime to book. The solar had just about set on December 19, 2016 while 64 12-month antique Joanne Cullen arrived at the Long Island Cemetery to go to her parents' burial plot. She spotted a bent out of shape bow at the wreath over the plot's headstone and bent over to repair it. As she did so, the ground under her feet gave manner and she sank into the grave right up to her hips. The unexpected occasion prompted her to lose her balance and tip over, hitting her head on the tombstone and cracking a tooth. She grabbed maintain of the sides of the tombstone in desperation and shouted for assist, however no one heard her. After she eventually managed to crawl out of the grave, she right away left the cemetery and refused to go back. Cullen also enlisted the assist of attorney to sue the belongings proprietors of the cemetery, bringing up emotional troubles and nightmares stemming from the bad incident.
Earlier in 2019, a girl fell asleep on a plane en route to Toronto. When she awoke, the plane became empty, darkish, and it changed into almost midnight. Luckily, she controlled to open the plane door and became rescued with the aid of team at the ground. Another lady ensign, China, located herself trapped in an elevator at the end of January 2016 after repairmen close it off and allow it rest at the first ground of the residential building she lived in. Unfortunately, the men handiest lower back a month later and discovered the decomposing stays of the woman inside, her arms disfigured from seeking to break out her metallic prison. It is claimed that the men by no means opened the elevator to check for passengers, however simply known as out, and upon receiving no answer, they closed the elevator off and left to have a good time the Chinese New Year. The sufferer is said to have been mentally disabled and turned into simplest, identified with the aid of her surname, Wu. Her own family suggested her disappearance, however did not adopt a look for her inside or outdoor the building. On November 10, 2019, 60-year vintage Song Ruizhuang left his home and activate on a hike in the Pingtung Mountains. He didn't return domestic and his family spent an anxious 10 days trying to find him before a villager spotted and accompanied Song to the closest police station. Song had seemingly climbed up a rock wall at some point of his hike and misplaced his glasses in the process, main to confusion. He then located a cave wherein he stayed for a few days, however left after knowing he would die there if he didn't make some type of plan to be rescued. He instructed his circle of relatives afterwards that he drink water from a move and ate plant life after his food ran out the equal day he left for the mountains. When interviewed approximately his ordeal, Song additionally claimed that a ghost couple met up with him out of doors the cave and walked with him for 2 hours. He believed them to be the ancient ghosts of indigenous Taiwanese, and he further claimed that they disappeared from his aspect without a legitimate as soon as he reached the direction leading down the mountain. Diane Berthelot suffered a spell of illness after a gallbladder elimination operation. She became sick for several months and on a variety of medication, inclusive of antibiotics for an infection. Despite this, she decided that she might take a trip to Norfolk at some point of the holidays. During her time there in 1975, she went into the Worsted Village Church to take a seat down for a peace and rest. While sitting on a pew, her husband and son walked around the church taking snapshots of the interior. Diane, feeling very ill, bowed her head and prayed for healing. She abruptly felt a tingling sensation throughout her body in addition to a feeling of comforting warmth. 6 months later, Diane was feeling on top of the world. Her husband determined to expand the pictures they'd taken on their trip, and while looking through them, they both gasped in unison. On one among the pictures, a woman sporting old-fashioned garments and a bonnet can be visible sitting directly in the back of Diane within the Worsted Church. Diane immediately knew this girl had healed her. The couple returned to the church and confirmed the picture to the vicar, who told them that he believed the girl in the picture became the White Lady who became a healer hundreds of years ago. Legend says that a person climbed within the church belfry on Christmas Eve 1830, shouting that he become no longer scared of the White Lady and could kiss her if she appeared. When his buddies came searching out him hours later, he become sitting in a corner on my own whispering, "I've seen her," to himself. He died rapidly afterwards. Most human beings didn't take Helen Duncan seriously as a medium after it became apparent that her predictions and conversation with spirits became all a huge fat lie. During the 20s she held seances and produced ectoplasm. However, she and her spirit guide named Peggy soon became gadgets of ridicule and very few made use of her services. Then, in November 1941, Duncan held a seance and claimed to have contacted the spirit of a sailor that become aboard the HMS Varham. This intended that she knew the delivery had sunk before it became announced. However, not every person becomes satisfied that this ordinary claim turned into the real deal, with one researcher believing she had honestly used rampant gossip to make some extra money for her fledgling business. This end didn't prevent British authorities from arresting and prosecuting Duncan beneath the Witchcraft Act. She became convicted and sentenced to 9 months in prison. As time went by, different mediums have become convinced that Duncan became indeed one among them and had a real gift. Some are even looking to clean her name. However, Helen Duncan remains a very debatable subject matter in discussions about the magical and supernatural. When 77-year vintage Minnie Winston stood as much as get out of the bath on a September 1987, she noticed a pool of red liquid on the ground. She took a more in-depth appearance and realized it changed into blood. When she looked across the bathroom, she saw blood pouring out of the partitions and walking over the floor into the adjacent hallway. Frightened that something may have came about to her husband, she known as out to him. When he showed up within the corridor, he showed no signs of bleeding. Terrified now, Minnie referred to as the police. Officers scoured the couple's home but located nothing that might have produced that amount of blood. They took a number of it to be tested and later concluded it turned into human type O blood. Neither Minnie nor her husband had this blood type. To date, the reason of the bleeding walls remains unknown.
On December 10, 2018, an unnamed purchaser sold a pair of socks at a Primark Save in Colchester. What became a very mundane buy became out to be pretty annoying when the consumer arrived home, took the socks out in their packaging and found a human bone internal, certainly one of them. The incident became reported to police on January 2, 2019, and Essex officers began an investigation. Unfortunately, the handiest factor they might establish changed into that the bone used to be a part of a human finger. Police could not discover any hyperlink to a crook act and believed the incident to be a hoax. However, no apparent DNA testing changed into achieved at the bone, and therefore the identity of the person it belonged to stays a mystery. A not-so-merry prankster has been scaring the pants off humans inside the Ukraine, given that early December 2019, a character dressed up as Pennywise from IT decided to hide in the back of bridges and in trash cans, doping up while unsuspecting passers-through amble past. The clown additionally pretended to pour gas over automobiles at a gasoline station while human beings are internal paying. Some purchasers have become so terrified that they ran away, leaving their automobiles behind. Videos of those pranks have gone viral, but additionally caught the eye of local regulation enforcement. A crook case has been opened in opposition to Pennywise below Part 2 of Art. 300 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, as it is suspected that the brains at the back of the clown operation are trying to sell violence. However, Pennywise is combating back. He stated on social media that for the reason that his pranks are not affecting children or the elderly, he's going to not stop and that he has merely gotten started.